tonight, a brief introduction, if I may. Once again, Coach Andrea Blackett is the assistant head coach at Azusa Pacific University. She came to APU in 2018 after spending the 2017 season working at UCLA, coaching the sprints and hurdles there. Prior to UCLA, she coached at her alma mater, Rice University, where she was one of the most successful women's track and field athletes in program history. She was a two-time Olympian, competing for Barbados in 2000 and 2004, and that during her 11-year professional career. She made her third Olympic appearance for Barbados by serving as her native country's head coach for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. So we're just delighted that she's back with us tonight, and her topic, hurdle drills and sprint hurdle training for high school athletes. My pleasure to turn it over now to Coach Blackett. Andrea?
All right, thank you so much, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here again. I will go ahead and share my screen. Tonight, we're gonna talk about hurdle drills and sprint hurdle training for high school athletes. All right, so here's what we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna talk about race logistics, the basics of the race. We're gonna talk about terminology of the hurdle event. How to go about choosing your hurdlers. We'll talk about some sprint hurdle training. We'll go over some hurdle drills that I use in my program and what to look for over the hurdle. And then we're going to talk about the start to the first hurdle. All right, so here are the basic race logistics. 100 meters for girls, it's 110 meters for boys, 10 barriers in both races. The girls go over 33 inches, the boys 39, 13 meters to the first hurdle, 13.72 for the boys, 8.5 meters between hurdles for the girls, 9.14 between hurdles for the boys, 10.5 meters to the finish line from hurdle 10 for girls, and 14.01 from hurdle 10 to the finish line for the boys. And the reason why I want to go over the actual distances for you guys is because these are some marks that you should keep in the back of your head, just in case you're in a warm-up situation at a meet where you don't have full access to the track. For example, last week we were competing at Concordia, Irvine, and we couldn't get on the track, but we had great turf. So I just walked off some steps, put some hurdles down at marks that I knew off the top of my head. So it's kind of good to know these marks so you can have a good idea of where you can place these hurdles if you're ever in a situation where you don't have access to the track, but you wanted to go over some hurdles, you want to go do some drills, you need to know these marks in the back of your head, okay? All right, so here's some terminology that you need to know if you're going to coach the hurdles. You got to know the lead leg, and that is the leg that goes over the hurdle first. My coaching philosophy, I coach a slightly bent knee, but some coaches will coach a fully straight leg. Either or, that's fine, but I believe in a slightly bent knee. Also, trail leg. Trail leg is the takeoff or push leg. It's typically the athlete's stronger leg. And it's called the trail leg because it trails the lead leg. So the lead leg is first, the trail leg comes over second. Next term that you need to know is rhythm. And this is going to refer to the high speed tempo required for athletes 3 steps between the hurdles. So anytime I'm talking about rhythm, I'm talking about the quick 3-step in between hurdles. Okay, next we talk about hurdle technique. And this is the athlete's ability to skillfully navigate over the top of the hurdle in an efficient manner, okay? So those are just some terms that we need to know when we're talking about hurdles. Another one that I didn't put on here that I probably should have is discounting hurdles. You will hear coaches often talk about discounting hurdles, and all that refers to is in training, you will shorten the distance between hurdles so that you can work on rhythm again between the hurdles. So if I'm saying I'm discounting hurdles, I will keep always keep hurdle 1 in the same place, but then I will move hurdle 2 a foot in, so it's a little bit shorter. So instead of being 8.5 meters, it may be 8.2, 8.1 meters. And then obviously hurdle 3 will be discounted by 2 feet. So that the athlete can work on being really quick with their rhythm between the hurdles in practice. But I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. Okay, so what are the skills that you look for in a sprint hurdler? Like the shirt says, to the right, the graphic says, a hurdler is a sprinter with lots of guts and a dash of stupid. Because of course, hurdlers, they have to really not have any fear and just be aggressive and attack the race. So I think that's a pretty interesting quote. Okay, so a sprint hurdler has to have a good level of speed. This is not the place that you put your failed sprinters, because this is a very high skilled event. So you want to make sure that you're selecting athletes who are powerful and explosive and have a good level of speed. Okay, power and explosiveness are key elements of the event because they have to push themselves over the hurdle. They have to be able to attack and be aggressive to the first hurdle. Athletes in this event also need a high level of mobility and flexibility. They also need good core strength. Strong core is required to explode out of the blocks and to clear the hurdles efficiently. Hip strength and flexibility is important to navigate the hurdles quickly and efficiently. And again, no fear. Athletes cannot be afraid of hitting hurdles, and they can't be afraid of falling. If you're coaching hurdlers, you have to normalize hitting and falling. It's the only way to teach this event. So athletes have to be able to run without fear, attack the hurdles, be aggressive in order to be successful in this event. Okay, your athlete also has to have the ability to focus through 10 barriers. It was interesting, last weekend we competed and one of my athletes finished the race. And after the race, she made a comment. She was like, yeah, I noticed that when I was around the middle of the race, I saw my other teammate was in the lead. And I'm talking to her and I'm like, well, how are you noticing all of this while you're running? If you're racing over 10 barriers, you have to have tunnel vision, you have to stay in your lane, and you have to have the ability to focus through every hurdle. You can't be paying attention to what's going on around you. So definitely you're looking for athletes who can have tunnel vision as they're going through the race. Okay, so this is the reality of hurdle training. If you're not ready to fall, you're not ready to hurdle. And hurdlers often have war wounds. You always see them have little nicks and dings, and that's just a part of the race. Okay, so training the sprint hurdler. You want to build the athlete's training base like you would a 200-meter sprinter. So the early part of the year, the athlete must be running 300-meter efforts, 200s, 150, and you want to put them out there with your best short sprinters, and they should be competitive with that group. Okay, so you're training this athlete in the same way that you would a 200-meter sprinter. Hurdlers should race over 200 meters often. Okay, you also want to make sure that you're drilling them, hurdle drills, multiple times a week to improve technique. Technique is something that you're constantly improving upon. I really don't think our hurdler ever gets to a point where they've completely mastered the hurdle technique. There's always something that you could be tweaking and improving. And definitely as an athlete gets stronger and more powerful and faster, their technique is going to have to be more refined, because when you're moving at a higher speed, the technique gets more and more important. But it should be a progression that takes place with a hurdler's technique. Okay, block starts are also a very critical component of the sprint race. Your athletes should be doing block starts a couple times a week. And you also want to line them up with the 100-meter runners to get them used to getting out quickly. So your hurdlers should be doing block starts right alongside your best 100-meter runners, because that's how they are improving their start and their explosiveness and their aggressiveness to that first hurdle. The approach to the first hurdle should be practiced regularly. This is a most important. I think that the approach and clearance to the first hurdle is probably the most important part of the race. I was working with a male hurdler earlier this week, and he was so timid and so cautious going into the first hurdle. So what I did is I dropped the hurdle from 42 inches. I took it all the way to 36 inches, and I let him work on his approach to the first hurdle so that he could build his confidence, learn how to be aggressive, learn how to attack the hurdle. And once he got that pattern established, then I raised the hurdles up and we started taking it from there. So you got to make sure you get your athletes used to that approach to the first hurdle. And it takes time. Hurdlers are often the last ones to leave the track just because they've got to drill, they've got to do their hurdle work, and then they also have to go and do their sprinter training. So hurdlers are definitely the ones that spend a little bit longer at practice than the other short sprinters. Okay. You also want to do work that focuses on 3-step rhythm often. Like I said, it's 3 steps in between hurdles, and it's very important that your athletes are working on that rhythm very often. I often lower the hurdles and I bring them in real close just so we can train the 3-step. So for your hurdlers, they're either working on technique or they're working on rhythm. In my program, we never do full height and full spacing in practice. I just don't think that athletes have that kind of adrenaline in practice. So I save the full height, full spacing for the meets. And during practice, we're working on technique. So I'll lower those hurdles. For the boys, I'll have them doing 36 inches. Of course, in college, they're running 42 inches. So sometimes I'll lower them down to 39 inches so we can work on good technique. And then I'll bring those hurdles in a foot, 2 feet, or whatever, just so that we can work on a good rhythm in between. So again, we almost never do full height and full spacing in practice. And at first you'll get your athletes worried. They'll be like, oh, but we need to work on, 33 inches or 39 inches. And, we need to work on the normal race pattern. But if you work on it in practice and they start doing a real job and they start building confidence, moving at high speeds over the hurdles, when they get to the race, it's going to transfer automatically. You also want to create situations for athletes to work on hurdle endurance and focus on the end of the race. I think the best part about coaching this event, this is one of my favorite events to coach, is because you can be creative and there's so much you can do to change things up during practice. Depending on how much space you have at your track, you can do 12 hurdles on the straightaway or 11 hurdles. Fortunately, our track, we have about 120 meters on the straightaway that we could use. So we'll do 11 or we'll do 12 hurdles and we'll have space enough to run off. Sometimes I'll set up 10 hurdles and I'll remove maybe hurdle 4, 5, 6 so we can get a good amount of speed in between going into the last 3 or 4 hurdles. Especially for the guys, I'll raise some hurdles, lower some hurdles. That's a good way to work on your speed and your endurance in the hurdles. Discounting hurdles, we always discount hurdles in practice. And again, what discounting hurdles means, cutting that distance from 8.5 meters down to 8 meters or 8.2 meters, or whatever the case may be. Today we did a workout where I had my athletes run 100 meters at about 85% intensity since we're in the middle of season. They rested of 1 minute, and then we attacked first 5 hurdles. So they had a little bit of fatigue in them, and then they had to attack 5 hurdles. So it kind of gave them the feeling of what it would feel like at the end of the race. And again, those hurdles were at 30 inches, 39 inches, and we brought them in 2 feet each hurdle. So that was just a good way to focus on the end of the race and what it's going to feel like. I had a post-collegiate male 110 hurdler, and he loved playing with the heights of the hurdles. So sometimes we would start with 3 hurdles at 39 inches, and then we'd have 3 hurdles following that at 36 inches, brought in close so that he could work on really getting fast in the middle of the race. And then we'd raise him up again to 39 inches at the end of the race so that he could work on different things at different parts of the race. Okay, so in the weight room, the focus is on moving the bar quickly and explosive exercises. So these hurdlers, they got to work on dynamic strength exercises. They need to work on a lot of good power cleans and squats, anything that can help them, that helps them move the bar quickly and can enhance their speed and their power and explosiveness. Okay, so what are you looking for over the top of the hurdle? We definitely want to focus on the arm position. You got to explain to your hurdlers that your arms are going to balance your legs. So you can't have your arms wild and outstretched over the top of the hurdle. They've got to be working in unison with the legs. We're also looking for aggressive approach into the hurdle. You want your body in a forward position. You want to see your athletes staying tall with their hips high over the hurdle. So you want to make sure that you're training your arms as well as the legs, and you want to make sure that your arms are staying active. Okay, so here are some common drills that we would do as a team. We'll do hurdle walkovers, and hurdle walkovers is something that we start doing probably the first week of practice. Even my non-hurdlers will do walkovers just because it's a very good core, hip strength, glute strength, something that everyone can benefit from. And then we move on to, so that it's kind of a progression. We'll move from hurdle walkovers into one-step walk-in. And then from one-step walk-in, we'll go to hurdle A skips. Then we'll go to 5-step-in. And 5-step-in will typically put the hurdles on the normal mark. And then we'll just drill 5 steps on the side. So we'll isolate the trail leg, isolate the lead leg, and just focus on technique over the side of the hurdle and 5 steps in between. Then from there, we'll move to 3-step-in, and we'll just play with the distance. Typically, I might use 20 feet maybe for 3-step-in, and maybe 22, 23 for the boys, and just do 3 quick steps on the side or through the middle. And then the highest level would be the 1-step-in, where I'll use 7 feet, maybe for the ladies, 9 feet for the guys, and just 1 quick step in between. Something else that I use for my sprint hurdlers is to work on rhythm. We'll use, we have those collapsible hurdles that are made of plastic. So if you touch them, they fall apart right away, which is a really good tool to train your very young hurdlers, to teach them to not have fear running through the hurdles, because if you touch them, they immediately collapse and no one gets hurt. So I'll put those at 27 inches so the athlete can run through them really quickly and work on that rhythm and work on that technique without any fear. Or sometimes I'll use those wickets, the little 6-inch banana hurdles, or sometimes they're 6 inch or a foot tall. And that way the athlete can simply just run through them with no problems at all, but they're working on that really quick 3-step rhythm. Okay, so here we've got an athlete and she is going to demonstrate the hurdle walkovers. She's got her arms above her head because we want to isolate the hips and the glutes and make sure that that is the only part of her body doing the work. And it also helps keep the core engaged. Oops. So here we go. See, so her arms are up nice and tall, and her glutes and hips are just pulling the knee forward, and the knee is coming up nice and tall up front. So that is the first drill that we do at the beginning of this training block. And again, like I said, all of my athletes do that, whether they're hurdlers or not. We keep that going for most of the season. All right, next we've got, I think we're walking through, or we're skipping through. So this is a little bit more advanced. This requires really good core strength, really good hip strength, really good glute strength. She probably could stay a little bit taller and keep her arms a little bit more engaged as she goes over the top of the hurdle. But this one is that's a little bit more advanced drill. But as you can see, we use 10 hurdles and they're all stacked back to back. This one is a skip through the middle. That's what we call it. So again, core is engaged and you're just letting your hip flexors and glutes do the work. And again, 10 hurdles. You want the athlete to stay nice and tall, keep their head looking straight. You don't want them looking down at the hurdle as they move through. All right. Next, we've got an athlete demonstrating trail leg against the wall. So this is the action that you want your athletes to train for their trail leg. And typically we will let them do both sides, not just their dominant side, because we want to just work on balance so that you don't have a really strong trail leg and a weaker lead leg. But the focus is keeping the core tight. She's staying nice and tall on her toes, and she's pulling that knee up high before it comes down to the ground. And that's what you're looking for on the trail leg side with your athletes. You want them nice and tall on their toes, pulling that trail leg around, and you want it nice and high, parallel to the ground before it comes down. Okay, so that's trail leg against the wall. Here we've got the athlete is skipping through the hurdles. So they're hanging the lead leg over the top, and then they're pulling the trail leg through. Okay, so you're focusing on being nice and tall, nice and strong through the core and the hips, and the trail leg just pushing off the ground and pulling through. And I believe the spacing here is simply, we took one hurdle out. So of the 10 hurdles, we would take out every even hurdle. So 2, 4, 6, 8, we took those out, and that was the spacing for that drill. So nice and tall, pull that leg through. Pull that leg through. And also focus on the arms when you're doing that drill. Okay. All right, so next we are going to look at a 3-step on the side, and you're going to see it from both angles. So the first one is going to be a back view, and then I'm going to give you the side view. I believe these hurdles they're probably 33 inches. and they're probably about 19 of my feet apart, and I'm like a 7.5. So that'll give you an idea of how far apart they are. But what we're looking for is the athlete to be nice and tall over the hurdle. And again, we're working on the rhythm, and you want a quick 3-step in between the hurdles. Okay, so here we go. Quick 3, quick 3. It's hard to see as she gets further away, but here we go. Pull that trail. Okay, so let's take a look at it from the side. And a lot of times we'll do drills on the side just so that we can isolate and focus on one part. So here she just has to focus on her trail leg. The lead leg is just kind of hanging, and we're just working on focusing on pulling that trail leg up, being nice and quick and powerful. Yeah, she can work on, one criticism I would give her is maybe be a little bit looser with the arms. The arms look a little too high. All right, so we'll look at this young lady, and she is going to be doing the same thing, except she's going through the middle of the hurdle instead of the side. So she's working on her lead and her trail at the same time. Okay, so you can see quick 3 steps as she goes through. Okay, same drill. I think it's a different young lady, but she's going through, we're gonna see it from the side. So snap the lead down, pull that trail up, and again, her arms could be a little looser. Quick lead, quick 3 steps in between. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the start. Races can be won and lost here. Definitely, if you're looking at some 60-meter hurdle races indoors, usually the person who gets out the blocks and gets to the first hurdle first, typically has the advantage to win the race. Okay, especially indoors. 8-stepping is typical. 8 steps to the first hurdle is typical. If you have a very advanced hurdlers, some of them can do 7 steps. You want to make sure your lead leg is the back leg in the blocks if you're doing 8 steps. What you're looking for on the approach to the hurdle is you want your most powerful and most intentional 8 steps that you can have. Okay, in the start, your drive phase is only about 4 steps. You could possibly extend it to 6, but you want to make sure your drive, and then you come up and get ready to attack that hurdle. So you don't want to stay low for too long in the start. But the first hurdle, it sets the tone for the race. So you've got to get out aggressively and attack the hurdle. Okay, so we're going to take a look at 2 different young ladies, and we're going to do it. I've got these 2 videos are in slow motion so that we can really take a look at it. And then I think the next slide is going to have the same 2 young ladies full speed going together. So here's the first one. As you can see, she's keeping her head down as she comes up and set. Okay, she's got big arms, big first step. She's staying low. She's starting to come up at about 4 or 5 steps and then quick into the hurdle. Okay, let's take a look at the other video. I think this one's a little bit better. Okay, big arms, big step, Stay nice and low. We're about 4 steps here. She's starting to come up. Very quick penultimate and into the hurdle. Okay, trail leg is a little too far out off the hurdle, but definitely you can see how strong and powerful those 8 steps have to be as you approach the hurdle. All right. All right, next slide. So, like I said, we've got these 2 young ladies, and you're going to see them full speed, side by side into the hurdle. And they're doing 3 sets. I'm pretty sure this day we're doing 33 inches, and the first hurdle is at the regular mark. Like I said, I don't play with the distance to the first hurdle. The second hurdle is probably brought in 12 inches, and then the second hurdle, 24 inches. But as you can see, you've got to be very powerful, very aggressive into the first hurdle. And as you can see in this video, they are both together. And I'm going to show you another start that will demonstrate how critical and how important the start is. If you focus on the young lady closest to us, you can see she got out so much better on that start, and you can see how she was able to capitalize on that and move away from her training partner. So the start is very important. Got to get out, you got to be aggressive, got to attack those hurdles and be really quick in between. And like I said, it's all about rhythm. All right, so to summarize, the sprint hurdles is a very technical event, so you have to treat it as such. Again, it's all about rhythm and it's all about technique. Treat it as a technical event. Be creative with your workout design. Do as many different things as you can. Create different scenarios. Like I said, instead of 10 hurdles, put down 11 or 12 hurdles. Raise them up, lower them. Just play around, make it fun. Allow the athlete to challenge themselves. Okay, this is for me, this is one of my favorite events to coach, just because I think it allows me to be creative and, show the athletes how they can not have any fear and just attack and be aggressive and have fun with the event. Okay. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Tim, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Andrea. We do have several questions here.
Okay.
Here's a good one right off the bat here. Do you ever train over more than 12 hurdles? You said 11 or 12. Do you ever go over more?
Yeah, I've never done more than 12. I think to maintain that 3-step aggressiveness, 12 hurdles may be asking a little bit too much. And you may be able to get away with it, but what I would do is make sure as you get closer to like 9 or 10, instead of bringing them 2 feet closer, I'd probably bring them in a little bit closer, maybe 3 feet instead, because the athlete's definitely going to get some fatigue going if they're going past 12 hurdles, 11 or 12 hurdles.
And that was followed up with a 300 meter. Do you ever do 9 or 10 hurdles for 300 meter runners?
9 for 300 hurdles.
Well, so yeah, high school 300. So the 8 hurdles, and yeah, I assume then we're talking about having a straightaway at the end where you could put another hurdle.
Put another hurdle.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I've never coached the 300 hurdles before, but yeah, I could see it happening because I mean, it's basically running 400 meters with hurdles, right?
Right. And they're gonna have to do that in college, that's for sure.
Exactly.
A lot of questions on 3, 4, and 5 steps. So let's kind of take those. I'm going to try to find there's at least a half dozen all of these here. So If a high school girl can't go 3 steps, is it better to alternate and go 4 or to stay with and go 5 with the same leg?
I would prefer them to go a quick 5 than for them to go 4, simply because if you're teaching them to go 4, it's changing the event for them. And then that's an even harder habit to break, from 4 to go back to 3 than it is to go from 5 to 3. But again, like I said, if I had an athlete that couldn't go 5, what I would do is in practice, I would jam those hurdles tight, get them used to going 3 steps, get them confident going 3 steps, work on their power, work on their explosiveness, and hope that eventually by the end of the season, they'll be able to get to 5.
All right, here's one for, do you have any audio cues or drills to get that trail foot to step out farther so they can 3-step?
So it's not necessary that you want that trail foot to step out farther, because if that trail leg comes off the hurdle and it opens up too much and it steps out far, you're putting brakes on when you hit the ground. So what you're really looking for is that explosiveness. And what I do try to do is, as we're working on practice, like maybe the 1-step drill in between, so they can work on being powerful and being explosive. And I will kind of clap my hands as they go over the top of the hurdle, so it mimics the time it takes for them to get down to the ground. So be very careful when you use the cue of trail leg opening up over the hurdle, because actually if the trail opens too much, you're jamming, you're putting brakes, and it puts your body in a bad position. So it's really more about the power and explosiveness over the hurdle.
Okay. You said right off that, this was the very first question. Why do you prefer a bent leg, lead leg?
I just think when the knee is bent, when you hit the ground, you're in a better position to move into the next step, versus when it's straight. I just think you've got too much, you don't have as much elasticity to move forward, I would say. I just find it's a little bit better for your second step. But I've seen some great straight leg hurdlers. I saw a picture the other day, and it was Nehemiah, and I forget who was the person next to them, but they were both sub 13 hurdlers, and one of them clearly had a straight leg. Nehemiah, I think, was straight leg, and the other guy next to him, and both ran under 13 seconds. So it can be done both ways.
And pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What do the mesocycles and macrocycles look like for hurdlers?
Okay, so mesocycle. So for me, our macrocycles, we typically in the fall, we go 3 weeks hard, 1 week off. 1 week not off, but like kind of recovery week. During the week, typically we are lifting. So in the fall, we lift 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so those will be the days that we work on explosive, a lot of hurdle hops, a lot of bounding. That will be the day we'll do our speed days, a lot of short sprinting, 40s, 60s, that kind of stuff. And we'll also get our block work in as well on those speed power days after we come up the weight room. And then the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday days would be our longer tempo days. So that will be the days that the hurdlers will get their 300 repeats in, their 150 repeats in, 200s and stuff like that. And again, I would have them running with the pure sprinters, so that they're working on, they're trying to be just as fast as the short sprinters are.
Okay. How many times a week do you work the hurdlers over hurdles?
At least twice a week, most likely, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week, depending on the time of year. In the fall, we probably only do 2 times a week. Right now, they're going maybe 4 times a week.
And then there was a follow-up to that very same question was, is it okay to have the athletes do as drills, like the trail leg drill, that was the one they saw, every day as a warm-up?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I probably, yeah, my athletes, that's a part of their warm up, doing drills on the side, the trail leg drill, the trail leg against the wall. They do that pretty much almost every day, maybe only 1 or 2 days a week. They don't drill. And again, like I said, stuff like the hurdle walkovers, all of my athletes do hurdle walkovers as part of their warm up, just to loosen up the hips and the glutes and get everything firing before they start.
By the way, right after you made the comment about Renault, I think Skeets Nehemiah and somebody else, two coaches right after that, Greg Foster. So that must
Greg
be
Foster,
that
that's
picture,
right. Yeah, I just saw that
UCLA,
picture.
the UCLA guy. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of questions about getting kids with fear of the hurdles and injuries. So first off, any suggestions or tricks you have to help athletes with getting over the fear of hitting the hurdle?
So I've typically always used those. I don't know if you guys know those. They usually have the red X hurdles with the white plastic bars that if you hit them, they just collapse. I would use those. I've also used that sponge that you can put over the top of the hurdle. I would do it homemade. They sell them at the various companies, but they're quite expensive. I would just put a piece of foam or something soft at the top of the hurdle so that when they're running through the hurdles, they hit it and they don't feel it. That is basically what you want to happen. You want your athletes to attack those hurdles and run through them and not be afraid. So the best thing I would say is just strap some foam or something soft to the top of the hurdle so that when they go through it, when they hit it, they don't feel anything.
You're exactly right. Those are very expensive. If you can go to Home Depot, you get PVC pipe insulation, about $1, 4-foot strip.
There you go.
Another way you can use that, if I may, is take two hurdles, separate them by put one in lane 3, one in lane 5, and put the PVC pipe insulation between, so a kid can hit it with all its force and never, they'll step on it, nothing happens to them. So
I never thought about that one, but yeah, that's a great idea. So they're not actually
too.
going over the hurdle; they're going over the actual piping. Yeah, I mean, there's so many cheaper ways to do it. I would definitely just strap some foam, strap something onto the hurdle. Yeah. Great idea.
Any more tips for avoiding injuries that often occur with hurdlers? So,
tips for avoiding injuries. The thing is, it's as a hurdler, you overuse these joints. So a lot of times, and especially if you have hurdlers that are straight leg, lead leg, they get that pain behind the back of the knee a lot. I would just say make sure they, have their little lacrosse balls. Everybody has the lacrosse balls. Build it into part of your warm up and your cool down. Them, rolling their hamstrings out. Extra stretching, icing. Hurdlers definitely need to do a little bit more in the maintenance department as far as, taking care of their bodies post-workout than most sprinters do. So I would just encourage your athletes to foam roll, lacrosse ball, roll on those lacrosse ball, make sure their hamstrings, especially the lower hamstrings, are, in good shape.
Okay. Any suggestions for helping to control shin splints on hurdlers?
Oh gosh.
Let's market it.
Right. If I knew that one, I'd be rich. So what I would do if the athletes are getting really bad shin splints, I would kind of put some hurdles on the grass for them and space them out a little bit closer and let them, hurdle on the grass. That's the best thing you can do. But, all you can do. The sad thing about shin splints is once they come, it's hard to get rid of them. So you just got to make sure you ice and maintain and, put them on the grass if you can.
All right, here's one. What drills can you use to control crazy arms?
Crazy arms. So we do a drill in the fall where we put the athletes on the ground. So we put them on the ground in a hurdle position. And so the lead leg is straight, the trail leg is bent, and we just do that arm action all the time. Also, if you jam the hurdles in really close, so for example, if you're doing a one-step drill and you only put the hurdles 7 feet apart, or for guys, maybe 8 or 9 feet apart, keep them really low. So for the guys, maybe 33 inches, girls 30 or even 27, and you have them skip through the middle of the hurdle, they don't have enough space for them to be wild. So it forces them to be really quick with their arms because there's only one, there's only 7 feet in between, and they have to get up and over the next hurdle. So their arms are forced to be really quick. So I find that drill kind of minimizes the wild arms. But again, they've got to be very confident to move quickly in between the hurdles when they're that tight.
Okay. Any more drills for building up hip flexors?
Let's see. One thing that I would do that same trail leg against the wall that I showed, except I would attach one of those bungees. If you have the ankle cuff that you put around the ankle and it's got a little bungee, and then when the athlete is pulling the trail around the hurdle, you give it a little bit of resistance, and it will force the athlete to really pull, and it makes those hips and glutes a lot stronger. So just add a little bit of resistance to the ankle, to the leg, as they're doing that drill. That's what I would do.
Okay. You said that you had advantages. You went over several times of lower hurdle height. Any advantage to having hurdlers hurdle at a higher height than what they race?
Yeah, I mean, I would say high school boys, yes, because if they plan on running in college, they have to go up 42 inches. For the girls, if you raise it higher than 33 inches, you're really changing the event. So I would say no for the girls, maybe yes for guys.
Okay. Do all your hurdlers do other events?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say probably no one in my program does one event.
Okay. And then do all your hurdlers run both the 100 and 300s, or 110 and 300s?
No. I do have some 400 hurdlers that don't do the short sprints. But I would say, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do have some 110 hurdlers that don't do the 400s as well. But for the most part, I think hurdlers should be able to do both.
We must have a distance coach with us. He wants to know, do you ever work with the steeplechasers?
Not really, but if I'm around while they're doing their workouts, I'll give a few tips here or there, but not too much. I've done a couple sessions with some steeplechasers when they're learning from scratch. The distance coach would probably send them to me so I can give them the basic drills for their first few sessions.
Go to the expert. All right, here's a long question, so let me get through it. It says, in college, I ran a lot of speed endurance sprinting at 5 stepping hurdles. For example, 3 hurdles, 3 stepping at 28 feet, and then 1 hurdle, 5 stepping 40 feet to gather speed, and back to 3 stepping at 28 feet. Do you do 5 stepping workouts at extended distances?
Yeah, I like that too. And that's another thing, like we were saying earlier, be creative. You can have so much fun coaching this event because there's so many different variations you can do. But yeah, 5 stepping is another great way. Like I said, also, if you're doing 10 hurdles, you can go over 3, take number 4 out. That way they'll have to do the 5 steps to get to the next hurdle. And that's a good way to train, picking up speed in between and being able to navigate those hurdles as you come upon them.
Okay. This one is, I have a lot of trouble with my athletes chopping their step at 300 hurdles, especially hurdles 4, 5, and 6. What can I do?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some college athletes who do the same thing. It's a tough one. But for a 300 hurdler, the best thing you can do is get them confident using both sides. If they can build more confidence using both sides, when they're in the race, they won't feel the need to chop because they can use the other side. If I have some really good hurdlers, what I would do, 400 hurdlers, I would make them go over 30 inches, three-stepping out the blocks and have them attack hurdles with their non-dominant side. That way they build confidence going over those hurdles at a high speed so that when they're in the race, they can have some confidence to use the other side so they don't need to chop.
Okay. How do you keep athletes from cheating? And then she explains that cheating, what I mean is on the hurdles on the turn, going over the side of it so they don't get disqualified.
Yikes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know how you get them from doing that, but you really want to coach the athletes to focus on staying in the middle of the lane. Those hurdles have the black marks on either side of the center of the hurdle. That's where they should be focusing. So maybe teach them to focus on the black marks so that they think about their hips should be staying within those black marks. And that way their trail or their lead leg won't sweep the hurdle.
Okay. Do athletes bend at the waist when they go over the high hurdles?
Yes, they do. There's going to be some bending happening, even if you're coaching them to stay tall. You do want them to stay tall, but there's going to be naturally some bending and leaning happening at the waist.
Okay. Let me get, there's one, oops, just had it here and then it went away there. Just a second. All right. How do you stop athletes from loading and jumping over the hurdle, which destroys speed at the hurdle? I think we're talking about young athletes as they get there, they think they have to jump over the hurdle.
Right. And that's why I always say, let's start with some wickets. Let's start with those banana hurdles. Let's start with the lowest possible hurdle we can when we're working on getting these athletes in the right positions over the hurdle. Because if they're jumping over 33 inches or 39 inches, if you lower these hurdles down to 27, 30 inches, 36 inches, they'll feel more confident attacking, keeping their hips low into the hurdle. So we start with that and then gradually progress them and raise the hurdles up as they start hitting the right positions. But it's very important that you get them doing it right before you start putting them on the 33s and 39 inches.
Okay. Coach Gray asked, can you explain the cut step?
Oh, you're talking about into the hurdle?
I think so, yeah.
Into the first hurdle? Yeah, so naturally it's kind of like the long jump takeoff. The penultimate step is going to naturally be a little bit shorter because you're getting ready to push off that trail leg. So it's not necessarily something that I coach. It just naturally happens, but the athlete needs to be aware that that step is going to be a little bit shorter as you're loading and getting into attack position on that hurdle.
Okay, I think we got through all of them and we're at the end of an hour. So Andrea, thank you so much again. I think that's great. And I want to remind everybody, we are going to have another hurdle session actually two more. We'll have 300 hurdles specifically with JT Ayers next week. And then Michael Wellington is putting together another one for us that we'll have in our final session, our 24th session. So a couple more hurdle sessions. Andrea, thank you so much. That was great.
You're welcome.
All right. I'd like to remind you that we'll be back in a few minutes at 8 o'clock with Willie Banks, the former world record holder in the triple jump at 58.11 and a half. Just think about that for a minute. He'll be here discussing the basics of the triple jump. And then tomorrow, all your sprinters and hurdlers, we're back with relays, 4x1 and 4x4. And Willie will be back with more drills for training for the triple jump. And then we'll come back again next week with 3 more days. So once again, Andrea, thank you so much. And everybody else, thank you for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you in a few minutes at 8 o'clock with Willie Banks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.